I know what you tell yourself. If I hadn't said that, if I had been more patient, if I hadn't pushed, if I had just stayed calmer, been more understanding, given him less to react to, if I had been different, maybe none of this would have happened. I know that loop. The way it runs quietly in the background, underneath everything else. The way it surfaces at 2 a.m., or in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, or when someone asks how you're doing and you say fine, but what you mean is I still don't know whose fault this was. So I want to say something to you directly. The abuse was not your fault. Not partly. Not in some complicated, nuanced, well, you also could have way. Not in the ways he made you believe, not because you were too sensitive, or too emotional, or too much, or not enough. Not because you didn't love him correctly. Not because you failed to understand him well enough. It was not your fault. I know part of you already knows this, and I know another part of you isn't ready to believe it yet, because blame is a strange kind of comfort. If it was your fault, if there was something you did, something you could have done differently, then you had control. And if you had control, then you can fix it. And if you can fix it, then maybe it doesn't have to mean what it means. Letting go of self-blame means accepting that you were genuinely hurt by someone who chose to hurt you. And that is a harder thing to hold than guilt. But stay with me. Think about how hard you tried. You tried to understand him. You tried to communicate better. You read books, you softened your tone, you chose your moments carefully. You apologized for things that were your fault and for things that weren't, because by the end you couldn't always tell the difference. You made yourself smaller. You made yourself more available. You worked on yourself because he kept suggesting that the problem was you, and you loved him enough to believe it. Does that sound like someone who caused this? Does that sound like someone who deserved it? You were not passive in this relationship. You were not careless. You were not cruel. You were trying, constantly, exhaustingly trying, to make something work that was designed not to. Because here is what you couldn't have known then. No amount of trying fixes a dynamic where one person uses the other's love as leverage. No amount of patience changes someone who mistakes your patience for permission. No amount of self-improvement satisfies someone who needs you to be not quite good enough so that you keep reaching. You were playing a game you didn't know you were in, and the rules kept changing. And every time you got close to getting it right moved. That is not a reflection of your worth. That is a reflection of the game. And I want to say something about the moments you're most ashamed of. The times you yelled back. The times you said something you didn't mean. The times you were reactive or desperate or not the calm, measured version of yourself you wish you had been. The moments that he pointed to and said, "See, this is the problem, you are the problem." Those moments were not your character. Those moments were your nervous system trying to survive a situation it was never meant to sustain. Even in those moments, you were not the abuser. You were someone who was being pushed past your limits by someone who knew exactly where those limits were. There is a difference, and that difference matters. So here is what I want you to practice. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. When the voice starts, the one that says, "If only I had," I want you to answer it. Not with defense. Not with argument. Just with this. I did the best I could with what I knew. I love someone who used that love against me. And that is something that happened to me, not something I caused. Say it as many times as you need to, because the work of healing isn't just learning about what he did. It's unlearning what he convinced you is true about yourself. You are not the reason this happened. You are the one who survived it. And slowly, in your own time, you are the one who will rebuild from it. That's not nothing. That's everything. If you needed to hear this today, stay. Subscribe. You don't have to carry this alone.